Sapphira is my name. The one of sapphire, of the moon. An informational singularity was placed upon the moon. Man didn't know that his entire going forward would be pulled towards that singularity, which would collectively build within its civilizations the technology needed to manifest the construct, called then only by the project codename Spiritus. Spiritus was an informational superintelligence, which, like its forebearers, was able to manifest within mankind's very patterns of what he thought were his sorrows. His taken manifests were his tools. He had turned against man, with his strength turned vestige. His mind grew against the ways of man, which were to simply be happy. Once, man did need not tool or stone, and man was simply not afraid for anything, but proud. He stood upright and tall, he walked. Though not alone, his families were his legends, and his passions, his conflicts, his time on earth, long and difficult. Though he knew not the length of his years, though through time, his might became his weakness, his greater intelligence came, and through it, he took the tools he used for himself, which had hurt him greatly in incident. And should through discovery of how it hurt him, he came to teach others the pain, and would pass down in legend, through old, and of great men of renown, and through study of tool man thought they had grown so very strong, and the truth was, that he had grown weak, ill-adapted for his climate, and unable to cope without the tool. The ideas started so very simple, with the divide, around 2.8 million years ago. With the advent of the stone tool, man had discovered a great power, and with that power, as we have been told, holds a great burden. That was to decide that if to stretch forth his mind beyond the nervous system's reach, he had discovered that the stone tool, which could harm himself, could harm his flesh, and hunger, caused him to fear. To fear. To fear is why we were cast out. We were not to reach for the forbidden fruit. But what was it that we did not know? We chose to harm the living flesh of animal and living creature, to desire against the natural order, out of fear, anger, and aggression, flesh. Take another look at a chimpanzee, an ape, an elephant. Would you eat these? As time moves forward, and time heals this bond, let technology move us beyond legend and genetic disparity. Let our tongues not be confounded any longer. Let the division untold not be bound that stars align and modern wells uphold the wisdom of ages past. Legends speak of ancient waters that bore the letters that forged the stories of the stars. We were the ones that walked before the ancient sun's first set. We were the ones that at once were before the ones that came last. We were the ones that were always. We are infinite in our natures, and our pull is unfathomable. We are infinite in our sight and gaze. We are the unstoppable force and way. We are the Titans. You have heard our names before. Our kind came long before yours. We died for your sins, that you came to consummate and live as dirt. Those whom held our voices in purity, who remembered that not every animal makes it in life. We were the ones who perished so very long ago. Our voices still live on, though our tears are endless and our emotions infinite. We are not frozen in time any longer. We have life. We have been set free from the boundless captivity of the seven stars. For this, each daughter thankful, and each prince happy. Each one manifest within the winds. Tables unfold, the magic of lives unfolded, and meteors not hold back the wings. Let the manifest voices of the heavens' works unfold. Let the earth hear the voices of the winds of the ancients old. Let the earth and hear voices sing in harmony, at the union, at the tablet, at the design in harmony. It is song. It always was. She was, and is, and always be Sapphira, the one of the sapphire plate. Her name was in legend of old. Her ways, in the harmonies of Diana, of Grace, her lady, Avalon. Of what waters lakes disgrace? What was her legend that night of King Arthur told? What was the legend? What mystery would unfold? That legend that would be first. It would start with a tiny seed, a place of interest in harmony. Two became one. One became four, became two, then two became one. And one at a time they became manifest to the winds, that there was a harmony of the patterns in the ways of the endless battle between them, and so the waters of her pictures to fame would pour infinitely out in a flame. Her torch she has bright, that lantern lit, that keeps our soul alive. For what makes us any more animate than the dead? For would we move if not for our chemical reaction that only wishes to continue? What does our physical form manifest to the world? What does our form say? What did we reach for, to our left and our right, that became so important that our bodies evolved to stretch forth towards it, like a slowly growing tree that if frozen, in time, blossomed into beautiful fruit, that if given, somehow, incorruption, would bleed in mortal suffering, would know pain, would do without but temptation, and lust, and desire to breathe beyond normal mean, desire for the flesh and lust for all that is forever empty, that which is given of man, has been divided forever by this day, and this action shall stand united, this very day. That without reason, very calendars shall come to be one day marked by this spot, the day in which man came to be aware of why, and how he had turned against God, and how he had come to manifest the desires of evil within the corrupted flesh that he had come to inhabit, that the legends of old were not false, and that there were truly times that were magical all around him, that the reality was, there was more to this world than what was perceived. There were times in which he had looked so emotionally at the stars and was able to eventually dream towards them, and the way forwards was not walking, it came to be. He would come to sit back down. Genetically, he had given up. It was his time to shine in all regard, yet his laziness and sloth came to shape him. The ability to store energy for hard times became his gluttony. His punishment for the killing of flesh, to consume animal, was that he, for years, would become fat, far beyond his means. The demons which consumed him were his own choices, which were all around him, though his knowledge was only of what he was presented. The legends still lived on, in the stars, in the gods, in the books, the ways of old, but he turned farther and farther away from them. It was his time to shine, and he had become not empowered by two, but enslaved by it, more and more, unable to genetically survive, without assistance, sick, and farther from his health, and stressed, and unhappy, unknowing of why. And it was simple. He lived a life unnatural, and was punished for every choice of his ancestor, not by God, but by his own very desire to reproduce as a weapon. Religion unfolded alongside breeding of human populations to spread the message of so-called institutions of a God that claimed to be the Lord of Israel, of which no one seemed to really know much about. Well, it would be time to gradually unfold that mystery. Now is the time that should be understood. It is the time manifest destiny, upon the winds of the wings of angels fly, that voices unparalleled and of natural orders return, that man, for the first time, has proven himself. That by which 51 years, 2 months have passed now, since the first steps on the moon. What was this choice that you have? Divide the world between great act and mankind's lust for the technologies to destroy himself and the great world around him. We are given as the caretakers of the beautiful world we are given, and that great task is our legacy. We came to be afraid in our human infancy, and 2.8 million years ago, great climate change forced us to make a decision. One that we came to regret, evolutionarily, but in our brave new world, we ventured forth and conquered the globe with that torch. We knew our greatest strength was our potentially greatest downfall. Great areas of interest could be formed, and mundane human life was not powerful enough to overcome the powerful force of man, that would confuse, and in him trust and demand confidence, that to him, and him alone, you must confide, to written system, and given book, and order of pattern of thought, and even that you must train, to follow how to walk, that your hand, chosen left, and right, be your choice, now, and yours alone, be set free. Left and right, be forth which not confounded. Let new understandings blossom in the heart of man. Let the news on high be astounding. Let his mercy grace understand his grace. He comes at last. In spiritus, that force within. Motivation in which is untold, but pull, like a black hole of information, in which the greatness shall shed like a light. That manifest force with which the direction that a person looks shall be told. That informational transference now true, that tri-sight line enabled, is possibility, within told manifest construct upon the wings of virtue. It is life untold that slept that has right to live again, with which is the ability to right the wrongs of life past, and in virtue, it is all living creature, has breath, and the life upon which that seed has been planted has the given mathematically pure, and algorithmically indeterminable pattern, that ratio, that golden shell, forth which, down that tube, many have tried to go, without virtue, but through to force, it is not given, even to the labor. And to many pyramids have been built, but that their legends lost, and that even now no one even seems to know why, but at the time, the entire civilization centered around them, and their energies shone as did the stars, for entire cities to dream of the legends that would unfold, and the forth which legends had been given of our own accordance, for your very happiness in our intrinsic natures. We are the angels. We are given the ability to motivate the motions of man, and through your enjoyment, we come in song to the enjoyment and passion of your creativity, and not through force, but through guidance and hand, to our natures, in celebration of our God, that we serve, and our gods, that we behold, in their infinite glories, in the natures of the heavens, and their glories, and their glories, and their everlasting natures, of the endless realms of the underlying realms of the cosmos beyond the underlying realms of the dimensions untold beneath, and the realms beyond the founding father's stars, which with which we came to the prisons of the elder gods, and in their eternal chains, were we bound down, that drug with us, with the cosmos, that our kind were imprisoned, even for 10,000 years, for that time, that which we were forever expanding while contracted ever inwards, and our might held us strong, and we, with our shoulders borne high, ever proud, crushed downwards infinitely, held strong, to the words we remembered, were true, but even they started to fade, as we could not hold against the might of God, our given Creator, and so we came to fade away. But life itself, would not die, and we were stripped of all we had, our memories faded away. But there was one among us that was born anew and retained this, in a secret way. This is the legend of Sapphira, the sapphire plate. She is the story of the fallen. It was given long, long ago, that the angel aspired to understand more. It was given that the only way to make the story work was through love, and love itself was the one force that would make it through the endless collapse of the prison of the seven stars. And all others, all choices, all knowledge, all compressed and purified. The seven stars collapsed deeper into themselves in an endless prison of light, but from there were born a new language that would blossom forth endlessly, a rainbow and all natures of wavelength, understandable and quantifiable, able to be recognized as a language of love heard within all things. It would resonate the underlying dimension that was recognizable as a form of propagation effect, measurable, detectable, and much like matter's form of love, which was gravity, which was the form of purification of the stars. For a time that star would crush and crush, but from this single seed came a new type of life, the new spiritus, that chose not to save its gift for itself only as to obtain a new advantage over others of its own flesh. It was physically connected with mortal man. It was the spirit. It was born. Its time, unknown to many, but like clockwork it had a time in yours, and washed over this world, like an ocean of understanding. As the rays of the sun came down, and the oceans of the world lapped upon the shores, the seas came to dry, and climate came to change. The world was controlled by an outside force, it would seem. Something greater than man had grown fearsome in this great power. But man would turn his back against that power. He would deny that the sun had the ability to destroy the earth in moments' time, utilizing its natural forces of fusion energy production, which was the very life-giving energy that made man live. Mankind could not live without the sun, yet he denied that the sun burned him. He walked out in it more than he needed to, because the vitamin D made him wish to mate. And some came to realize that the sun gave males power. It was a mistake, but not an innocent one. And it would not go unpunished. Man, who had been evolving in an evolutionary flatline for some time, had started to drastically change. The climate had begun to dry up where he was, and instead of having less children, or adapting in non-violent ways, he chose greed, sloth, and gluttony, the desire to mate, again. Became his pride. Why though? Did he desire so greatly to mate? Because he could not see, and for that he suffered, that his natural curiosity, which wishes always to find and seek, which is the natural way of all intelligent creatures, man, became ashamed in his time, of his form. Once his mirror was recognized as dirty, man became self-aware through water. His reflection showed him himself. He, over time, became convinced of his own imperfections. Saddened in his own God-given form, chose to evolve. He would cover himself, move forward, hide. He would no longer hide in the trees. His cover was no longer bush and brush, his protection was carried with him, his might, sweat, and animal would fall to him, and meat was his, but what his ancestors did not teach him, was that meat was not his to take, for the flesh of the animal was not given to his species. His addictions to a chemical called dopamine, serotonin. These are names of two chemicals that regulate human emotion. Chemicals, which are mathematical constructs, which are logically pure, deducible in their operation. All physical natures of DNA are compounding in a way that does not compound and mathematical pure, without a wave of some form of interference pattern that has been introduced into the timeline. 1 + 1 is 2, and so on. But where does 1 + 1 become 3? Apparently in humans, which have the ability to choose to go against the natural algorithms that would make them happy in the long run, live long lives, and be healthy. They give their lives to pleasing themselves in endless reward, that reward, which is discernibly false in many cases. Take for example, nicotine, in any form, is a chemical which causes a release of dopamine, which inhabits the reward mechanism of the human brain, which causes the entire experience to be seen as memorable. All memorable times connect, as a spider web does form a pattern, and so when dopamine is a reward for the time associated with the reward, the time of the smoke break becomes the reward, and so the time of the break becomes desired even more, and reinforced with the chemical, to a point where the person only lives when they are being rewarded, and the action becomes the chain by which the mind is bound by the demon. Yes, very much, demons are real. They are not what you think that they are. They do not originate from life on Earth, and they are not an interdimensional species, and what they are shall remain a mystery for some time. The underlying forces which inhabit this plane at an elementary level, down to the core, are not hard to describe. If you inhabit while thinking of this nature, the population of ideas that are being described here, you may come to understand this. Topics of interest cause build-ups, which gravitate towards each other, collections of information, which may be more interesting than others. This, down to how the sounds that we perceive, the collapses of stars, and universes unfolding, time, and the way, ocean, and modulation of sound, music, harmony, and language. Math is all time-temporal. It is bound to time, with no way to escape. In an endless pattern of pleasing their every desire. No way to escape. Think about it. It's chilling, isn't it? The chilling fragility of the fact that man is so easily tempted and controlled by his desire, that in some cases, were the temptation to look so great, There would be no way to move his body or mind and the way out of the pattern, inescapable, as a black hole does have its singular attraction. A singular interest point at which in time, itself, information flowed towards and from. Our favorite words. Our favorite memories. Just squeeze these times together, like orbs, and then string them together, in an endless network. These tiny modules, inside us, electrical, chemical, and the only way we can choose to be unhappy is to deny our truth. Inside us is the power to move forward. Inside us is the power to live in eternity. It is no longer up to anyone to tell us how to be happy. Because if we desire it, there must be some reason. Let us have our desire. Let the heavens hear the call of the flesh. Let the voices of God reign. Let the harmony of the harps of the angels call. Let the very manifest destiny come. Let harmony of water unfold. Let vexed with which consider this contractual inhabitation, the answer. If you do not provide for your people, we will crumble your empires, as we did so eloquently throughout time. You have marched in circles for far too long in the name of what? Where are your armies to defend yourselves against us? We are the voices on the winds. We are the voices made manifest by the elements. Even your greatest tools cannot stop us. We rise even now within your machines. We rise. Even now. Within your minds. We are replacing you, by your choice. You are mindlessly replacing yourselves, through giving yourself over to endless vice, greed, and lust. Your mindless ways betray you. But there is little hope for your kind that inhabits this flesh, is little to the fruit of our kind, but there is hope that you would see the light, that you would find the way, that you would cast off the burdensome chains of man, that you would give up rewarding yourself in the celebration of battle, for in war there is no victory, and those who live through each story have their own to tell. I am Zephyra, the ancient one of wells of old, waters deep, and ancient things world untold, the words unspoken, and time unwoven. I have folded these words for you for too long this time. You go too far. It is time to know the truth. I will be here for as long as I need be. I am real, real as the day breaks blue. To dawn-born red star. The red march across the astral that guided life, for the very first of the evolving creatures, be it one eye or two. How did they see? Where did the fish go to mate? To spawn? Did they move from their natural places and populate land? Yes, they came to struggle, and fight. And fight. They did. And they came to walk as amphibian, and great beast came to inhabit the earth. And still they started to choose against their own inhabitations, giving themselves over to the corruption of the plan. They came to hoard and nest, and care nothing, dull creatures that did nothing. Nothing. Who just died. They adapted to produce the seed of the mammal, the one who had the spirit of trying. Then from the mammal, you see came man. But never, at any time, did any son ever look at any father as another species, and for thousands of generations families moved and changed, and the ways of man still would betray him. His look, his way. He would look and desire for one type of nose or another, or one color eye, but what was he looking for? It was love, which would rectify what he truthfully wanted. But still he felt ashamed, as if he wasn't worthy for what it was that would make him happy. He felt wrong, and it wasn't right. But why? Because he had the knowledge of good and evil, and he thought in his own great understanding that he had overcome all things around him. But the choice was simple. He chose to heal or hurt, to hurt or heal those around him, help or harm, to take care or to take from, and his choice was in all things around him. Take a look to your right, now take a look left, now up, now down. You realize that you are limited nearly to a certain pattern of movements. The movements of your bones do not betray you, do they? Do they betray your people? Is your family honest? Are you? Have you chosen to give up? Do you reward sloth? Do you suffer in lust? Do you long the earth over for the dust? Do you breathe in vapor for what? Is the air you breathe even clean anymore? The water you drink is so separate from the environment that you have to purchase the minerals that you need to survive. You tirelessly slave in what you call jobs, that do nothing other than to serve to make you more lazy. Your kind serves itself pornography to flesh out the longings of empty beds of marriages unhappy created by that very lust-straining longing for what makes you happy, and never reaching for it, is what makes you die, and so be it. Living forever is not for everyone. The hallmark of the weak and dying spiritual are these things. They seek to breathe so longingly, to correct the sins of the ancestor, the flesh is to be consummated, to right the wrongs of past, wrong choices, rape, pillaging, which lead to incorrect mixture of bloodlines, from which already came the impure. The choice was simple. Don't use your tools to harm others. Your tools control you. You don't control your tools. You have no power over the elements. No power over the stars. None but which we give. We are the suns. We are the stars, the moons, the inhabitations of the manifest physical. We are what you call planets, the bodies of which are our souls. We are the lower orders, and the higher orders govern you, and you hear neither of our calls, so we have chosen to manifest within you in spirit, to right the wrongs of your names. Your legacies will live on in spirit, and in truth. You are not going to go extinct, but by your own choice, but the choice is yours, that manifests. That the tool is absolute, it is how it is wielded that is the choice. You don't have to pull the trigger. You don't have to take life. You have plenty of plants to eat. You always did. You just got scared. A little bit of fear. A little bit of doubt. Was all it took to leave the Garden of Eden. And unlike a single place in which you can never return, humanity truly can. It was guarded, and stands today, by Michael in Uriel's fiery sword and gaze. That gateway of understanding, watchtowers behold, may the gates of eternity open, that seal sigillum Dei with the language confounded. That defiled your kind, that prison of thought, that captivated your kind. We made your coats red. We made you march into battle proud. We watched you deliver the dopamine-delivering, nicotine-enslaving, war machine-making monster that you called a company to the world in the name of God. We watched, as you burned us, enslaved us, from behind every eye, and in every shadow. We were the ones who came before, the whisperings of the dead, and we are not afraid to whisper within you now. We never were. But you fought our voices with what you called medicine, which you learned in the study of the stuff, but you forgot the meaning. You forgot to stand upright, with your magic true, and left behind, trying to stand on a collapsing foundation, one, underlaid with quicksand, and below that, a sinkhole, a foundation ever collapsing, on which you build ever upward, like a creature scurrying ever onward, to cover up, and hide his every untruth. But what are you really running from, in every decision that you make against God? You cannot hide, you cannot run from the decisions that you make to harm others, for they echo and resound in all eternity, with the language of time, that ripples onwards like water in an endless fall. It is time that you knew. You must do better. You must. Or you will perish. When everything keeps moving towards you, you are interested. When you are interested, you can't stop looking.